friends, I'm Lauren Bernick, and I'm flipping the script about growing older. My guests have been influencers since before that was even a thing. Welcome to the Anti-Aging Podcast. Welcome to Age Like a Badass Mother. Char Nolan is a serious crusader for plant-based education. Armed with a degree in public health from Philadelphia's Temple University, she teaches nutrition and plant-based cooking classes throughout the Philadelphia region. She is also a contributing author to Edible Philly magazine and Veg World magazine. Since 2020, she has been a member of the culinary instructional team at Ruby Online Cooking School, working with culinary students worldwide. Char prides herself that everything she knows about cooking, she learned growing up in her grandparents' Italian restaurant. Last year, she spent a week at a cooking school in Puglia, Italy, learning the recipes of her grandparents and then converting them into delicious whole food plant-based versions. She is a former Peace Corps volunteer. She's been married to her husband, Patrick, since forever. They have 2 adult children and a rescue lab named Jax. Char says that one of the keys to staying young and vibrant is her lifelong love of learning. At almost 75 years old, Char is finishing her master's degree after more than 40 years, and that's what I call a badass. Please welcome Char Nolan. Hello, Char.
You are just way too kind. I want to say that. You're very, very kind. Well, welcome to you. And I could say as well that you are a badass. And I think that your podcast is planting lots of seeds throughout the meta universe or whatever you want to call it, and sort of becoming a benchmark for women and men to learn about aging. I don't want to say growing old, because to me, growing old is somebody who, is hunched over on a walker with tennis balls on the bottom of their walker, not to make noise. And, it's funny, and I'm sure you probably have a few questions for me, but I just wanted to share with you that, I love going to the Y, but I had to change my schedule because the old people who are my age were there. And what I found is that they would talk about things like this, what medications you were on. And in a little pool conversation while we were waiting for the instructor, someone said, "So Char, what medications are you on?" And
Seriously?
yeah. Or that you hear, especially older women, say things like, "I love my doctor so much, and when I go there, he gives me a hug." And I just thought to myself, we all have the potential to be our very, very best. And that I see at the Y, many older women who seem to be just falling into that agedom of, I retired, my kids are grown, they live out of state, I may as well come here and talk to other older women who have a bad haircut.
Oh, that's so sad. You know
No,
what?
it is
I mean,
sad.
well, what you were saying about I love my doctor, he gives me a hug. My mom, when I would take her to the doctor, she'd be so excited. I think she had a little crush on him. She's still alive, but now she's getting the doctor coming to her house. But like that was the most exciting part of her day, was that, getting dressed, going to the doctor, and he would give her a hug and she loved it. Oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
that's sad. Well, you're defying aging, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on. One, you have well, let's start at the beginning first.
Okay.
I want to talk about your grandparents' restaurant. So you said that, we're both from Queens. I think that's why we hit it off when we first met. Queens girls. But you
Where
said
my
you
name
grew
is Charlene. My name is Charlene.
Charlene.
Yeah,
Charlene. I
exactly.
was Lauren.
Exactly,
And
you
I
were.
still am to my mother. Um,
Yes.
so they had an Italian restaurant. And so you said you learned everything about cooking, but what did you learn, life lessons there or just cooking?
Well, I think that more than anything, I observed their personalities and how they got the job done. And when I was in Puglia last year, one of the things that they pride themselves on is getting the job done. And I was able to connect so many dots when I was there because I like to get the job done. You send me an email, I want to respond.
Oh, yeah, you're
And
on it.
to that point, that is a huge, gigantic generational difference because I will send an email to someone who might be 30 or 40 years younger than I am and follow up with a text message because you don't call people these days
Right.
and say, "Did you get my email?" Yeah. Whereas when I send emails to my colleagues who are my age, they're on it like Johnny on the spot. And I think my reasoning behind this, aside from being a half Italian, is that we were around when email first came out. And I can remember a boss telling me, when you get that email, you must answer it immediately.
Mm,
So I think that we were sort of like watching Henry Ford invent a car,
right.
except instead
It's
it was a
changed.
computer. Yeah, it's changed a
It
lot.
has
Yeah,
changed a lot.
yeah.
And I mean, definitely I don't think, yeah, I think that people don't do that anymore. But so you learned about getting the job done and cooking.
Well,
Anything?
yes, I'll tell you one other thing. I learned about full food utilization when I was very, very little because my grandparents never wasted anything. And I'll give you a couple of examples. We were taught that we would eat our vegetables first
Mm,
because if there were other entrees, you were already full and they could take what was left over and make it into a ragu or make it into some sort of scallopini or whatever. I
okay.
never ever saw my grandparents throw food away, ever,
Yeah,
ever.
I'm
And
sure.
because you're from Queens, I know that you'll understand this reference. I grew up in a house where we ate bread, but Wonder Bread was called American bread. And
Yes.
to this day, I still call it American bread.
American
Not
bread.
that I buy it, but it's just kind of funny. But I think having a good work ethic, not wasting food, and I think that there's a. I grew up in a large family, an extended family with 20 cousins. My mother had 5 siblings, so my grandparents were the magnets. And I think that today we don't see a lot of that because we all live so far away from our families of origin. But um, I make a mean pasta sauce, and I've learned thousands and thousands of recipes. And when I went to Puglia, it was like, oh yeah, I already know. I was like the
I
kid in
know
the
that.
advanced AP class. I already know that.
I already know
So
that.
I already know that. Yeah, it was kind of fun. So
Did your
anyway,
grandparents this might be a regional thing. Did they call it gravy or sauce?
sauce,
Sauce.
sauce with a
Sauce.
W.
Okay.
hmm
Yeah,
hmm
right. Exactly. What region calls it gravy? Like Pul
Well,
is Puglia south? Or is that north?
it's no, it's south in the agricultural part of the country.
Okay.
In Philadelphia, people who live in South Philadelphia, which is essentially or was essentially largely Italian 100 years ago, they call it gravy.
Okay.
My
Cuz
family was gravy is what you put is brown. It's not
okay.
red. Yeah.
Yeah, cuz we had family friends and the Martinellis, they called it gravy. Okay, we'd go for Sunday dinner there. So the Peace Corps, how old were you when you joined the Peace Corps?
I was in my late 20s. I was living in San Francisco, living the dream of, peace, love, and happiness. And I can remember January 20th, 1961, in a snowstorm. It was Inauguration Day of John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And my mother said, go write a letter to the president, which actually was the seed that planted everything. Because I write letters to everyone who, even if they don't know me, I write them a letter. I'll write a senator a thank you note or whatever.
Yeah.
And I blame my mother for that. And I asked the president, well, what should I do for my country? And I got a letter back from Mr. Ralph E. Duggan, who was a special advisor to the president. That letter got me a homework pass, by the way. And he said, many, many good things will come and you should do community service. And I was like, okay. So I spent my teen years being a super volunteer and all kinds of different things. And always in the back of my head was, I am going to become a Peace Corps volunteer. And that was it.
Oh, you know what? This is one of my questions for you for later, but I think I was going to ask you, you do so much volunteer work, and I was wondering where you get that tender heart for all that. Was that from that letter?
Seriously, it was from that letter. And interestingly enough, and not that I'm a Kennedy file, but when you grew up in that era, you knew a lot about that family without TMZ, without, Reddit or anything else like that.
Yeah.
So Eunice Shriver, Maria Shriver's mother,
Hmm.
um, did a lot of work for citizens who at the time it was called who had mental retardation.
Right.
And I became a volunteer at a camp when I was in the 8th grade. And by the time I was a senior in high school, I was like a lead counselor. And it was a township camp. And, I think that volunteerism just speaks to my heart.
I'm just going to name some of the places that you volunteer. Just give me like one or two sentences. Tell me what it
Sure.
is and what you do there. So, Sanctuary Farms.
Sanctuary Farms is a 501c3 located in a zip code of Philadelphia whose per capita income is $15,705.
Whoa.
And it is an actual farm that grows produce, and people in the community come and get their produce and then they go home.
So people would come and take the food, but you were like, what are they doing with it when they get home? So were you showing them like, all right, this is what you
Oh,
do with kohlrabi
yeah.
and this is what okay. So you were trying to make it like understandable for them. So like, you don't just take this beetroot and, chop it up because it's going to be some people find it disgusting like me, but there are ways to do it where I still eat it. And I'm starting to like it, but you are showing them how to make it taste good, right? Is that the idea?
Well, I would call a couple of days out in advance and say, what's in the harvest? Then I would go to the grocery store. I would buy that produce, and then I would make a 3-course lunch out of what was in the lift for the day.
So you
Yeah,
would test it out.
and then I made reading appropriate recipes, mostly pictorial, so they would know how to go home and make this lentil stew.
That's
And if we were
great.
making a lentil stew and it needed tomato paste, I would go to Aldi and I would buy 40 cans of it and let everybody take one of those home. And it's interesting because when you work in a food desert and you're me and you live in the suburbs, you don't do your needs assessment at Trader Joe's or Whole Foods. You go to a bodega. You go
Mm.
to there's a grocery store called Cousins that's located in underserved communities and new to this community. And if you don't go there, grocery store outlet, which is my favorite place to shop because you can find unbelievable things. And the offshoot of that was let's go on a tour of grocery store outlets so that
Yeah,
you can see how to read labels or find the best bargain for your money or how to buy mushrooms or how to buy broccoli and things like that. Anyway.
that's great. Wow. Okay, so that was just the first one. All right, let's move this along here.
Yeah, I'll be shorter. I'll be
Culinary.
shorter.
Okay, Culinary Literacy Center of the Free Library of Philadelphia. What's that? And what do you do there?
Um, it's the fourth floor of the main branch of the Philadelphia Free Library. This building looks like the Supreme Court. I mean, it's a
Is that the one with the
gigantic.
Rocky statue?
No, that's
Oh,
the art
that's
museum.
that's the
Uh,
art museum. Why did I
that's
think
the
that was
art
the
museum,
library?
but of the same genre of
Okay,
architecture.
okay.
Fourth floor is a working hotel kitchen. People sign up for classes. I work offsite in a lower income community, and that's where I work with the Charlie Cart. And the Charlie Cart is a 600-pound kitchen on wheels that includes a stovetop, a little oven. It's got a sink. It's got a Vitamix. It's got pots and pans. It has everything in the world that you need to teach a class. And the good thing about the Charlie card is that its inventor is a lovely, lovely woman named Caroline Fetterman, who was the executive director of the Edible Schoolyard in Berkeley with Alice Water. And she wanted to invent a teaching tool that would take food into the communities. So rather than it be a chuck wagon, it's called a Charlie cart.
Oh,
And
okay.
when I started working at the Charlie Cart in 2016, I was number one. I was Charlie Cart number 168, and now there are over 500 of them throughout the country, and they are just a fabulous, fabulous tool.
And then Project Home, what's that?
Well, Project Home is interesting. This is another 501c3 that Sister Mary Scallion, she was a nun. She still is a nun. Um, she was moved by those who were unhoused and began this 501c3 that has provided all kinds of housing for people who may have housing insecurity. And then she invented this thing called the Stephen Klein Wellness Center. And people who don't have a primary care physician can go there for care. So the CDC wanted to do a study to see the impact of a whole food plant-based diet as a lifestyle for sort of decreasing lifestyle illnesses. And that's where I came in. And I worked with a really wonderful RN named Lisa Greenspan. And we worked together for 3 years. Two quick things. During the pandemic, the day before a class that I would do via Zoom, I would pack up little bags of food that had all the ingredients so that for those who, wherever they were living, they could either cook with me or they could open up the ingredients and have something to eat for themselves.
Okay, that's
End of the
good.
story. We all know the results. We know what happens if you follow a whole food plant-based diet. And
Well,
very,
say what happened because not everybody does know what happened when these people followed a whole food plant-based diet.
oh,
And these are people who don't have a primary care physician or maybe even a home, right?
exactly.
Okay.
So what happened was people started to see a decrease in their A1C, or they saw their blood pressure going down, or they started to lose weight, or they started to sleep better. All of these sort of cardinal things that we look for when following a whole food plant-based diet.
I like that you're planting that seed because you're absolutely right. Those are the people who need it the most. Um,
Well, I just want to share one other thing, and that is there's a thing at the Stephen Klein Wellness Center called Drop-In Day. So I said to someone, well, what's for Drop-In Day? And my colleague said, well, it's when you can come in, you can take a shower, you can wash and dry your clothing, you can see the physician or your nurse practitioner or whatever. And I said, well, what do they eat that day? And my colleague said, what do you mean? And I said, well, do you feed them like a lunch or something? And she said, no. And I said, well, why don't we have a drop-in day where they can have a 3-course luncheon?
I love
So,
that.
um, so all the women who were in my class thought this was a great idea and they all wanted to volunteer. And this was the sweetest thing I can ever remember in my life. This gentleman came up to the condiment table, which, had hot sauce, nutritional yeast, etc. And he said to the volunteer, I'm on a low sodium diet. I can't have any salt. What do you have for me to put on top of this soup? And she said, well, you know that you only want to eat about 1,500 milligrams of sodium a day. We don't have any salt here. We have some low sodium tamari, but you might want to try the nutritional yeast. And I remember sitting there thinking, I might want to cry because you never know how your message is received to others. And I just thought, well, this is good. This is good. So
Yeah.
anyway.
I oh gosh. So you're just like the food hero. You're just like every time you see a problem, you're like, well, let's feed these people. And also that, that's part of the Italian restaurant, but also just
Oh,
that getting the job done. You're like these people need to be fed and they need to be educated about food. And, I mean, if you live in a food desert, you live in a food desert, except for where you are, where you can come and
you
get
know,
some vegetables.
you did just bring up a great point because feeding 70 people on that day where they had homemade corn muffins, a big corn soup, and fresh fruit and crudité cups with hummus in the bottom. That comes from being around a restaurant it was my sandbox.
Why do you do all this volunteer work? what are you hoping to accomplish? Is there something, or is that not something you ever think about?
I don't ever think about it, but what I do see in other women my age at the YMCA is that you have a choice. You have a choice to either keep your life on the expansion mode, or you have a choice to keep your life in the narrow mode that goes from being, happy and productive to being isolated and watching TV at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah. So you're just trying to be helpful, to be expansive, like you said. I love that. Mm.
I never thought about it, to be honest with you.
You never thought about why you're doing it.
I think it's just part of my fabric. And that letter
Uh-huh.
from Mr. Ralphie Duggan.
And that's crazy to me. That's crazy. So we talked about that you're almost 75. What do you love about being this age?
Um, I don't know that I'm this age, because, and I think that we can both agree that, I do wonder what my life would have been like had I not been in, um, Maryland, in Rockville, Maryland, on September 23rd, 2009, when someone came to talk about this Engine 2 diet. And the person who was delivering this talk looked different. Their skin was gorgeous. They seemed nicer than I knew them to be. And every time they were speaking, I kept writing things like Engine 2, Rip Esselstyn. And on my way home, I went to a freestanding bookstore when there used to be tons of them around. And I bought the Engine 2 diet book. And then I went to the grocery store and I thought, I'm going to give this thing a challenge. I'm going to do the 28-day challenge. And I kept this little running log of what I would eat on the 29th day. And it was, standard American food.
So for those people who don't know, that you're just talking about, this is a challenge to eat a whole food plant-based diet, because until then, 2009, you said,
Mhm.
is that right? You'd been eating just the standard American diet. Is that correct?
Standard American diet, exactly.
Okay. And
So
so, all right.
go ahead.
Now
No,
you're
please.
gonna now you're gonna do this whole food plant-based diet for 28 days, the Rip
For 28 days.
Esselstyn. Okay.
Right.
So then go ahead. So you get all the
But
stuff.
on day nine, I woke up because I had really bad osteoarthritis. So much so that I lived on Tylenol, or maybe I should say acetaminophen, so we don't give any credit to that company. Um, and when I woke up, I was like, oh, this is what that guy is talking about in that book, that food is medicine. So with that mindset, I do believe that, and this is my own opinion, that following a whole food plant-based diet really does give you many advantages in the anti-aging process.
Hmm.
Because I ride a bike every day. I'm active. I see friends. I have a nice family. I keep busy. I have a wonderful, wonderful position at the Ruby Online Cooking School, where I interact with students from all over the globe who are studying this 6 to 9 month course to become a plant-based chef. So I think I'm going to put, if I run a quiz show, I would bet $100 that a plant-based diet gives me the energy and the wherewithal to never feel old. Physically, I don't feel old, but sometimes I'll tell you two quick stories. I'm working. I left after 10 years. I left my job at Whole Foods Market where I was a marketing team leader, and I had taken a job with a startup company. And there was a young student from a Philadelphia university, and the entire computer system crashed. The entire computer system crashed. And she was looking for a phone number. And here was me going through my daytimer going, oh, here's their number. And this is what she said to me. You are a genius. And it
Because you
was
had it
at,
written down.
it
That's so
was that,
funny.
well, you know what? It wasn't funny to me. At that very moment, it said to me, oh my God, you are getting old. You are totally getting
Oh
old.
yeah.
That was like
Yeah.
a big monumental moment in my life. And, um, for years and years and years, I was involved with Team in Training, which is an arm of the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. You raise money, you travel somewhere, you do a 26.2 marathon, you have a patient hero, et cetera, et cetera. And I was at a meeting one night and someone mentioned the name Helen Hayes. Now I know, how do you know Helen Hayes?
Oh, I mean, I just grew up watching her, and actually, we interviewed somebody else who said she was like the reason she became an actress. So, yeah, I know who she is.
Okay, you know who she is and I know who she is. And
Well, that's because I'm old.
someone in the room turned to me and said, Helen Hayes, the photographer on Fern Boulevard? And I was like, excuse me? She said, yeah, there's a photographer on Fern Boulevard and her name is Helen Hayes. And I said, no, I was talking about an actress. And the person said, I don't know who that is.
I don't know
So
who that is. Yeah, I
those
mean,
were the,
there's things that make you
yeah,
feel old, like,
no,
but
no, yeah, yeah.
it makes you feel. But you you were talking about you ride your bike a lot, and I know you just fell, and then you had to get a DEXA scan, and you also had just mentioned that you had osteoarthritis. Tell what just happened in your DEXA scan.
I had my DEXA scan a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, okay. I
And
thought that was from your
no, no,
arm,
no. No, look,
from your
here's my
fall.
arm. I healed it
Oh,
myself. And
okay.
you know what? I took turmeric and,
Wow.
arnica and you know how it is. Um, any other person who would have fallen like I did,
Hmm.
coming over a wooden bridge after a rainstorm, which was stupid on my part. And when I fell, the first thing I did was move your extremities, because I didn't want to break anything. But my DEXA scan is normal. I have the DEXA scan of like a 28-year-old.
So you've healed your bones probably from eating this way if you had osteoarthritis. Wait, what did you say you had? Osteoarthritis, or you said that, right?
Osteo. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I
I think you're
mean,
right.
that's incredible. All the greens, all the green leafy vegetables, right?
You know, I think that you're right. And another interesting point is we recently went on Medicare, which sort of like no one prepares you for the trauma of all of a sudden becoming a Medicare patient because you have a different label than when you're a private pay or whatever. And so I chose a nurse practitioner who had really good credentials, and she automatically pigeonholed me
Yeah.
automatically. And then she took my blood pressure, she took my pulse, she took my EKG, and surprisingly said, your EKG is perfect.
Yeah.
And then she said, you didn't fill out your medication page. And I said, I don't take any medication. And again, going back to the benefits of a whole food plant-based, in my case, no oil, salt, or sugar diet. And I think, I often hear Ann Esselstyn in the back of my head saying, eat those greens, because I really do think that they are like the magic bullet.
Yes, I agree.
Don't you think?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so I think another thing about staying young is your lifelong love of learning. I talked about that in your intro. So in 2020, you completed your postgraduate coursework in social media. That's not something somebody in their 70s usually does. So social media marketing. And now you're finishing your master's degree after 40 years. So can you just talk a little bit about that?
So, one of the 87 jobs that I have is I do a lot of social media professionally. And when social media first began, I think we were all on the Mayflower learning,
Yeah.
how to do a post and take a photo and all of that kind of stuff. But I really wanted to understand the underbelly of
Yeah.
social media.
Hmm.
And so I went to a 1-year postgraduate course at a university in Philadelphia in person. And I was by several generations the oldest person in the room. And I think that when I showed up, they thought I wanted to learn how to like post a pic of my grandkids.
Yeah,
I don't have
exactly.
any
Right.
grandchildren. So that was interesting because I learned my deficits technologically that I didn't know I needed to learn, but I also learned to do Canva, which
Hmm.
was like a whole course. And it gave me a really good foundation to understanding how social media works, which is what I really wanted from it. So, um,
And then
I
your
started graduate
master's.
school. I started graduate school when my kids, before we adopted our children. And then I put my educational life on hold. And I don't know, 2 or 3 months ago, I was like, I need to finish this master's degree. And I learned that all of my credits from my social media marketing program could be applied to a master's degree.
Oh, wow.
And I chose to take a program in something I know nothing about. I could have easily gone and gotten, an MPH in public health or whatever. It seemed boring to me, but I know nothing about organizational development and how groups come together and how people work and understanding differences. And what I hope to gain from the program is sort of bridging that generational gap that happens in the workforce, because I see it
Mm.
every day. It's kind of interesting.
Oh, that's good. Man, you I love it. I love that you're not slowing down at all, that you're just kind of speeding up actually. And one of the things I wanted to add, well, when I asked you what you wanted to talk about, one of the things you said was body positivity
Mhm.
because you said there's many biometrics that matter and thin can't be the only measurement. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. And I do believe that it's not the only biometric in the world. And I'll speak of myself that I diligently follow a whole food plant-based diet, eating the same food that you eat, but I still have weight on me. And it becomes a judgment zone for other people because I'm not pencil thin. But here's what I carry in my heart. I might not be pencil thin, but my cholesterol is 147, or, I carry in my heart the confidence of those biometrics, which I think are equally as important. And, there's an old saying, that says thin does not necessarily mean well. And I'm talking in the psychosocial sense, not in the, physical sense at all. So I think embracing who you are, I look at dogs, that there are Chihuahuas and there are Saint Bernards. And you
Yeah.
can't expect a Saint Bernard to weigh the same as a Chihuahua.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I believe this strongly because I have to say, and not that I'm taking anybody's inventory, but I do see people who border on eating disorders because they think that the most important thing about whole food plant based is being thin. The reality is being comfortable in your own skin, having a good mindset of what you do and who you are, and continue eating what you like. And it's just, I could talk about this for hours. You know, do you
Yeah,
know
I
who?
think you're right.
Do you know who Myrna Valerio is?
No. Who's that?
Myrna Valerio is a long distance athlete. Um, she was once on the cover of Runner's World magazine, and she probably weighs about 250 pounds, and she exercises ferociously. She has done all kinds of crazy, crazy physical endeavors. She is a spokesperson for Lululemon, for LL Bean, for Ford, because she expresses body positivity while being a larger sized athlete.
You wanted to talk a little bit about remaining visible in a young world. What do you
You
That
know,
one
I,
is tough, right?
it's it is very, very tough. And I think that you must choose your situations wisely. You must have your own posse of people
Yep.
who understand who you are and what you do, and that this is just my own heart speaking, that you need to surround yourself in situations that reflect your innermost values as a person. So,
Mhm.
for example, I belong to several professional organizations, and will I go to an event that's at a fancy swanky bar in center city of Philadelphia? No, because everybody who will be there will be 28 years old. But will I go to a dinner uh, at a restaurant in the suburbs where I know the crowd who will attend will be roughly between the ages of, shall we say, 45 and 80?
You have been posting about going to sleep better because of limes. Limes, the little green like lime squeezy things. What? Tell me about that.
Well, I think that part of our good health is understanding sleep hygiene.
Yes, this comes
And
up very often.
it's a very popular topic, especially in women of a certain age. And my good friend Sarai Stancic speaks about it beautifully in her book about, making routines for yourselves, keeping your screen off next to your bed, have a sleep time. My Fitbit tells me every night at 10 o'clock, time to get ready for bed. And I would do deep breathing exercises. And then one friend said, "Oh, you need to take melatonin." But the melatonin left me feeling like I had a hangover, and I didn't like that feeling at all. So one day, I just found this article, "How Limes Can Help You Sleep," and I was like, "Oh, come on!" So I've been sleeping with the limes instead of sleeping with the fishes. I've been sleeping with the
Limes. This is crazy. Limes. What do? You
So
cut them up?
you cut them up into, I cut mine into 8 sections, give them a little squeeze. I put them on a flat plate. I find that flat is better because if you have it in a bowl, the essence can't will stay in the bowl.
Okay.
And I sleep now anywhere between 7 and 8.5 hours a night, which a month ago I would wake up at 2, I would wake up at 4, I
Oh.
would go downstairs.
Oh, really?
Now I just totally sleep.
Now you sleep through the night.
Sleep through the night, and apparently the science behind it is that the fragrance of the lemon, of the limes rather, I don't know if you can use lemons. I think you could probably use any citrus, but it does something, and they use it for babies. And I thought, well, I would like to sleep like a baby. So
Yeah,
that was it.
that's
Yeah.
good. I don't know why they
There's
say
a,
sleep like a baby. They don't sleep.
yeah,
But I guess when
I've
they
heard that
sleep, they
before.
sleep hard.
I would suggest to anyone to go Google sleeping with limes and then read about the scientific data behind it. I'm just one person, but I have to say that several of my friends have tried it. One said it didn't work, and several have said it really improved their sleep. So,
Yeah,
and
it's worth a try.
our dog sleeps better too.
Oh my
He
God.
has he has a little bed, at the bottom of our bed,
Yes,
and he
yes.
sleeps the night.
That's so
So,
funny.
don't you think that's funny?
I think it's hilarious, especially that your dog sleeps better. Mine woke me up this morning. I almost killed her. But she was, I don't know. It rained last night. So I was like, maybe she had to go to the bathroom. She woke me up at like 5 in the morning. So I let her out and she was just went out to chase something in the yard. I was like,
Oh, that's
oh, you're
hysterical.
making me mad, girl. But anyway, all right, that'd be good. So, all right, try the limes. Okay, now I just want to ask you some quick questions that I ask everybody, unless you have anything else you want to share.
I'm good. Go.
Okay. What do you think what's your best piece of advice for aging well? Just one thing.
Aside from the benefits of a whole food plant-based diet, I think that socialization is very, very important. If you want to join a senior center, join a senior center. If you want to take a class, an enrichment class of some kind, find one during the day if you don't like driving at night. Um, Join a theater club and go to a movie house that has discussions afterwards. Um, I think that you cannot isolate yourself. You have to get out of your house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's very good advice. Got to find your people. What's the best advice you've ever received? It doesn't have to be age related.
I'll say it to you in my mother's voice.
Okay.
Charlene, mind your own business.
Okay. um, what did you learn from watching your parents age? Could be good or bad.
You know, they didn't age. That's the problem.
Oof.
And I think that uh, my mother died when she was 64. She
Mm.
had primary adenocarcinoma of the lung that had metastasized to her brain on diagnosis, and she passed away in a very short period of time. And my father lived 14 years after that, but also from heart disease and metastatic colon cancer.
Mm.
So seeing them as my vision and so many things about them that I absolutely love and sort of try to copy. But one of them is how I eat so that when I turned 65 years old, I had like a victory dance because I got to live older than my mother. And it was a really wonderful feeling. So, um, you know, my parents were hardworking people. They were kind. They were funny. So I think I take a lot of that with me in who I am. But I think that being cancer free for me is like a piece of joy. You know, it really,
Yeah.
really is. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite health or beauty product?
When you say health, what do you
Yeah.
mean?
Um, maybe like I don't know, a supplement or well, maybe like even the limes I would consider a health product, using them as a sleep aid. I don't know.
Um, I wash my face with hot water and rinse it with cold water, and that's my
Oh,
skincare routine.
that's a good
And
one. The
um,
cold water closes it all up, right? Your
right,
pores and okay.
right, right. And I don't use soap,
Okay.
um, just because I don't use soap. Um, in terms of a product, I will tell you that I do take two supplements during the winter. I take a D3 and I try and remember to take a B12. But the last time I went to the doctor, my B12 was like off the chart. It was so high.
Oh, wow,
And
that's great.
well, actually, I mean, it was like in the abnormal range.
Oh, it was not good.
No, it wasn't good. And so the nurse practitioner who doesn't know anything about what I eat or whatever said, I think you should cut back on your vitamin B12. And I said, well, actually, I love nutritional yeast.
That's what I was
And then,
wondering.
so I cut back on my nutritional yeast bigly, as they say.
Uh-huh.
And, that has made a huge difference. But those two supplements and, uh, my skincare routine. My
That's
grandmother
good.
lived to be 94 and she had absolutely gorgeous Italian skin. And her trick was olive oil.
I
She
knew you were
just
going to
would
say olive oil.
slather olive oil on her face and she had the most beautiful skin.
Yeah. Thank you,
Oh
Shar.
my
You're
God, thank you. Are you kidding? This is a conversation we've been wanting to have since
I know.
forever
We
because
we talk all
you're
yeah.
so good at what you do and you really know how to pinpoint the questions to ask and you understand people so beautifully.
Mm, thank you. You're
Yeah.
so sweet. I love you, Shar. Thank you. You take care.
Okay,
Talk
so much
soon.
so. Thank you so much
Bye-bye.
again.
Thanks for listening, friend. From my heart to yours, be well until we meet again.